I'm Ryan Baxter, and I'm a manager at Saffery.
What sector is your company based in?
So Saffery are a top 20 firm of chartered accountants and business advisors.
Tell us what your company does.
Broadly, we're accountants, but we provide a range of audit, accounting, tax, and business advisory services to our clients.
Does it supply to regional, national, or global markets?
It's not an easy question to answer, actually. We've got 9 mainland offices from Inverness down to Bournemouth, and then there are offshore offices in Switzerland, Guernsey and Dublin, and we're also part of an international network which operates in, I think at last count, about 123 countries around the globe.
How many people work within the company?
So excluding the kind of international network, so if we look at Saffery in isolation, there is about 820 people.
What makes your company stand out to your customers or clients?
I think clearly there's a lot of different accounting firms out there working with clients, but I think what's different about Saffery and I joined the firm back in March 2020, and the one thing that really kind of shines through and that is unique in our offering is I think the client service and the way in which we proactively advise clients, but also advise them as individuals and people, not just their business.
What recent environmental changes has your company made or plans to make?
So this is a really interesting one, actually. Obviously, 12 months ago, we were spending an awful lot of time out on client premises, so face-to-face meetings, traveling up and down the country to visit our clients, to work on their premises and to meet with them. Clearly, one of the key changes is that we're not doing that travel anymore. In addition, there's the obvious things that we do as a firm, so reducing paper usage. Substantially all of our files are now electronic. Also, simple things like energy saving measures in the offices in terms of lighting, etc.
What do you do?
So I work with what I believe is a dynamic and kind of progressive client base to deliver audits of their annual accounts, but also support them with business advisory matters and also financial reporting as well. So supporting clients to prepare financial statements which comply with the relevant regulations.
How long have you been doing it?
So it feels like a lifetime, but actually I joined Grant Thornton as a trainee back in 2012. I qualified as a chartered accountant in 2016, progressing through to managerial positions at Grant Thornton in 2018. I then left Grant Thornton in 2020. 2.5 weeks before lockdown to join Saffery in Peterborough, and I've been there for the last 9 months or so.
How did you get involved in it?
So I joined Grant Thornton, as I said, as a trainee on a training contract, and I guess at that time I thought, I'm reasonably analytical, pretty good with numbers, and I enjoy, I had sort of a passion for business at that point in time, and a real passion to try and understand business and the way business is operated. So becoming an accountant seemed the obvious way to do that. I think what's interesting here is there's a bit of a misconception that being a good accountant is about being good with numbers. Actually, it's so much more than that. And I think as my kind of career has unfolded over the past 8 or 9 years, starts with the numbers, and the numbers are important, and then it becomes about the words, and the words become important as well, and being able to articulate and explain and interpret information is really important. And then throughout all of that, there's a theme that runs through the middle, which is the people are really important. So that it's really important that you're able to work with people to but equally to challenge people, to act as a sounding board for your clients, to develop the new trainees as they come through. So I got into it because of thinking that I'm pretty good at numbers and I have a passion for business, but actually it's become so much more than that as my career's unfolded.
What kind of projects are you working on right now?
So you've caught me at quite a busy time of year, actually, which is good because it means I've got lots to talk about. I work with a couple of groups that are listed. So one of which is listed on the AIM exchange, and the other is listed overseas. So we've been working with one of those businesses on pulling together its statutory accounts ready for release and for the auditors. And we've been working with the other business to kind of review and provide a conclusion on their half-year financial information, which will go in their half-year group report, which ultimately goes out to the market. So busy kind of kicking off the audit process for a couple of pretty significant clients. One's a construction business that turns over in the region of 300 to 350 million, and then another is a fresh produce business, so grower and processor, that turns over around the £100 million mark. So lots going on, and quite a degree of variation in what's going on at the moment.
What are your favourite parts of the job?
I think by my own admission, I don't have the greatest attention span in the world. So it's important that the flip to that in terms of the way the industry works is the legislation is always evolving, the challenge from regulators is always evolving. You're always working with new people, and internally and externally, actually. And I think also clients are always facing new challenges in their businesses. So I probably have, my favourite thing probably falls under the banner of the people. And underneath that banner is probably twofold. I love working with the teams and seeing people develop. So, as the trainees come through and they show a deeper understanding and a fresh approach to problem solving, I really enjoy seeing that kind of journey. I also enjoy learning from those around me as well, and we can learn from everyone. So I enjoy the teams I work with. And I also enjoy problem solving with clients, so working with clients to overcome whatever challenges they may face. And as I'm sure you'll appreciate, over the past 9 months or so, we've done lots of that, lots of supporting clients through difficult times and helping them to navigate the myriad of changes. So yeah, it's centered around the people, but I love the change, and I love the progression of people around me, but also love the problem solving aspect as well.
What do you think are the skills needed for your job?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and as I said before, what people think the job is and what the job actually is probably quite different, particularly as you kind of get into it, and I've seen that unfold over the past 8 years. But I think you need to have an inquiring mind, be interested, and want to get to the bottom of things and understand. I think that's really important, and with that, you need some analytical skills and a kind of the ability to problem solve. I think it's really important. I think one of the other important skills that develops over time is the ability to articulate and explain. And of course, we're revising businesses, and we're working with clients with all sorts of different skill sets, different experiences, and therefore being able to explain things in a way which our clients understand and which makes sense to them is really important. So the kind of ability to articulate complex problems and turn that into an action plan is important. And I think probably most importantly, ability to work with others, contribute to a team environment, but also work independently, but also to coach and develop people around you at the same time as learning from those around you. So kind of being a sponge, and also being able to coach and develop others.
How do you network?
Clearly, networking, the way we network has changed over the past 12 months. Previously, we'd be running events in person with clients, with intermediaries, so bankers, professional advisors, lawyers. In conjunction with those people, we'd be running events. We're not doing that at the moment. We've run a series of virtual events, which offer, I guess, an opportunity to network in a sense, but it's all very different. But I think the way networking is sort of happening at the moment is we're keeping in touch with the people, our kind of contacts and the people in the market we know. We're keeping in touch with clients directly, in order that we can kind of pull together through the pandemic and hopefully see businesses grow stronger out the other side. So full service on networking, I think, will resume, I hope later this year. What that will look like remains to be seen, but I expect we'll get back to where we were before, face-to-face events, and catching up for a coffee is always a good one.
What changes have you seen in your sector in the last 5 years?
Perhaps the biggest change for the sector is the way that the technology has developed during that period. We're seeing, and you sort of see the good, the bad, and the ugly. The technology's developed, therefore the way we're able to harness data and kind of manipulate that and understand it is much greater. Also, access to cloud accounting for clients. So actually the way clients interact with their accountants is different. We can dive straight into our clients' accounting records without going out and going through a filing cabinet. That's very different. And in terms of the bad or ugly side of technology developing, you see, cyber exposure for businesses is much greater. The risk of fraud through perpetrated online channels or email fraud or anything like that, attempts at extracting cash from businesses basically by criminals. That's kind of the bad and the ugly side of the technology developing. So I'd say, if I had to sum it up in one word, I think technology is the biggest change over the last 5 years, and I expect will be a feature for the next 5 years. We're, as a sector, I think we're probably pretty close to the forefront on technology, but by no means is the journey complete. So I'd say it's early stages. There'll be a lot that will change and develop in that space over the next 5 years as well.
What are the developing opportunities for your sector?
There are lots. So as you may know, there's a shift in the requirements or the way in which HMRC want businesses to report to them. That in due course, we expect we'll see businesses reporting more regularly. So moving away from manual reporting, or particularly individuals moving away from manual reporting down to quarterly reporting or similar. That clearly develops an opportunity, whilst clients will want to cap their compliance costs, and rightly so. Actually, the client's burden is likely to increase as a result. So, finding smart ways to deliver that support and those services to clients, I think is a great opportunity. Other than that, I think the audit profession has gone through an incredible amount of scrutiny, and subject to various reviews and large audit firms, the big four as they're known, have kind of we've seen reform in the way their audit practices operate. What that kind of shake up at the top means is that increased regulatory scrutiny and a higher level of regulatory requirements means that ultimately audits cost more, and therefore larger firms are looking elsewhere for those services, and sitting in the mid-tier as a kind of top 20 firm. I think Saffery Champness are well placed to provide pretty unrivaled support to those businesses and provide those audit services that otherwise they would have gone elsewhere for.
What are the developing pressures for your sector?
The pressures actually probably are pretty closely intertwined with the opportunity. So the pressure is to make sure that we're at the forefront of the adoption of technology and adopting the right technology that helps us, and most importantly helps our clients. That's a pressure. That's a force. I think the regulatory pressure is something that we can't ignore. As a regulated audit firm, we are subject to, our audit files are subject to review by third parties, by the regulators, and that's a pressure, and that has been a pressure for all audit firms, in fact. And no doubt, we've all seen what's gone on in the news as regards failings by audit firms, and the magnitude of some of those cases that are being brought against those audit firms who are alleged to have not carried out their audits with due care. That's a real pressure, and that level of scrutiny, without doubt, and also the changes in regulations in recent years, without doubt increases the amount of work we need to do. And one of the pressures is how do you, increasing the amount of work means that the cost increases, and being able to offer value for money in the audit process, I think is a pressure for the profession.
What organisations or professional bodies represent your company?
guess the main one is the ICAEW, so the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. So I'm a chartered accountant and I'm registered as a member with the ICAEW. Also, Saffery Champness as a firm is a registered firm of chartered accountants. So we're registered with that same body, and ICAEW as a body supervise and monitor, I think it's somewhere in the region of 12,000 firms. And then over the top, you've got the FRC, so the Financial Reporting Council, who regulate auditors and accountants, and I guess their overarching purpose is to promote transparency and integrity in business, and they regulate for example, the provision of audit services, and they will inspect files for certain firms which fall within their remit. So depending on the scope of audits you're undertaking, you may fall within the FR.
What skills does your company or department most value in your employees, and why?
I think it's alignment against the firm's core values, which are excellence, integrity, collegiality, and enthusiasm, which falls under the overarching banner of client service, basically. I guess if we go through that, excellence is about doing a really great job and delivering, really great output. Collegiality is about doing that as part of a team, and whether that team is internal people or external people, it's important that we're able to work with those people. Enthusiasm is about, doing that with a can-do attitude and being driven to do that in an energetic way. Integrity is about continuing to do the right things even when nobody's looking. That's the best way to explain integrity. And the overarching banner of client service is all about delivering, the best client service, considering our clients' needs and absolutely hitting those needs and expectations every single time. One of the things that leads to great client service, in my opinion, is the ability to empathise. So ultimately, we're advising people. So okay, yeah, it might be in relation to a business or an asset or whatever it is, or their own personal affairs, but we're advising people. So understanding those people, being empathetic, understanding their goals and objectives, and all of that good stuff, I think is really important to good client service. So the ability to, I guess, fundamentally, in answer to your question, which is what we value in our employees, it's alignment to the firm's core values, the ability to really empathetically advise clients.
What are your company's or department's top 3 interview questions, and what are you looking for in the answers?
So I would say we don't have top 3 questions. What we're looking for in the answers is if I talk specifically about graduate positions with Saffery's, what are we looking for? Well, we're not looking for a really well-rounded accountant with loads of technical knowledge. Obviously, that's what we offer. That's part of the training contract with the firm, and that's part of becoming a chartered accountant with the firm. That happens afterwards. So prior knowledge and experience is not mandatory, and it's certainly not a must-have. What we're really looking for is to understand the people, understand what their values and drivers are. And one of the ways, there's kind of 2 ways you do that. One is less formal part of the interview, where we, just have a bit of a conversation about things generally and ask questions of interest to see what answers we get. And that those won't all be written down. That's just a conversation. And the other aspect of the interview is understanding how people would react in certain situations, and that tells us a lot about the way people think. So give us an example of this, or what would you do in this situation, for example. I think those are the ways that we tease out a little bit more about, okay, we've understood the person, and to cement and bolster that understanding, we work out what they'd do in certain situations, and then that gives us a more a well-rounded understanding of whether or not those people, that individual would be a good fit for our organisation. And hopefully from that, what becomes clear actually is that, for the individual, it's really important that we're a good fit for them. So it's a kind of 2-way street. And that, hopefully, I guess, at the end of the interview, if we ask the right questions, as I said, we don't have a top 3, but if we ask the right questions, knowing whether or not we're the right firm for them, and we'll know whether or not they're the right candidate for us.
What other roles does your company employ?
So there are lots and lots, there's 820 people, so loads and loads of different roles across the firm. If I talk about, what we've got, what do we do in Peterborough? What people have we got in Peterborough? So we've got a payroll team. We've got a personal tax team who deal with personal tax affairs of our clients. We've got a corporate tax team who deal with company tax broadly. We've got a business support or administrative team, which incorporates, the secretaries and those who support the business in the kind of, I guess, the administrative kind of engine house, if that makes sense, is a really important part of what we do. There's a lot of compliance that's dealt with internally, and they do a really great role, a really great job of dealing with that. And then of course we've got the department that I work in, which is audit and accounts. So we've got auditors and accountants within there who prepare accounts, audit accounts, provide other business advice, etc. And actually, we've also got to work in transfer pricing. Looking at transfer pricing arrangements between territories, etc. So that's kind of a discipline of tax, I guess you would say. So that's kind of what we've got in Peterborough. But across the firm, there are, a number of other service lines that kind of exist.
What advice do you have for someone wanting to work in your sector?
The best piece of advice I can give is one, work out what matters to you and find a firm that aligns with your values. I think that's really important. Firms in the market stand for different things and they work in different spaces in a different way. Finding the right one, I think, is really important. So do your research, I would say, but also when you're listen to those around you and observe. And if you take you're gonna, in your career, you will come across a lot of people, and from each person, if you look at them, or look at the way they operate, listen to what they're saying, look at how they go about things, take one thing from every person that you kind of come across that you think is great, and then try and instill that into your own approach, and then you'll become the kind of the superhuman accountant almost, that brings together all the kind of best attributes that you've seen. And I think I've spent a lot of time over the years just observing and listening, and there's a lot of you're working with people who have been doing this for a long time, and you're getting exposure to them and to the way they operate. Listen and observe would be my one piece of advice.